Hi, my name is Alyssa Nastasi. I'm the Assistant Director here in the Career Center at St. Martin's University, and I will let our guests introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Christine Dominguez. I am the Senior Recruiter over at Department of Labor and Industries, and we are essentially what Washington State uses as the insurance company for all employers. So all employers pay a premium on their employees regardless of their status with citizenship, and they're protected by L&I. So workers' compensation is probably the main thing that we do. We pay out for anyone who's been injured on the job that submits a claim, and that's valid. We also conduct fraud investigation for people who are submitting claims that may not have actually gotten injured on the job. So investigation is a big part of what we do. We have a crime victims program as well. So if you are a victim of crime and it affects your ability to work, we also have claims and adjustments that fall under that arena, which is something that people don't know that we do. We have the safety and health side of the house, which helps prevent claims from happening. So we have health inspectors that go into different construction zones, lumber zones, industrial, and even the Dollar Tree, and they make sure that Washington State is adhering to both federal and state WISHA and OSHA laws. So we're one of the few agencies that have the ability to regulate federally. And then because every agency that state government runs kind of like a mini city, we have a lot of support positions that fall underlying to support those things. So we have office assistants, clerical, we have IT that support all of the technology that we do. We have HR, we have imaging, anything you can think of, forms and records, medical coding, we have all of that.
Great. Thank you. Well, can you tell me a little bit about your normal recruiting and hiring schedule, what that process looks like?
Yeah, so our typical time to fill for a recruitment, start to finish, is about 90 days, which sounds like a long time, and it is. Our goal is 45, but we rarely hit that. So it starts out with a hiring manager determining a need. They have a vacancy, they need to fill it. They have funding to fill it, and that's when we post the position. So we go through, we have a classified position description that any applicant can ask for and view to see what the job percentages look like. And that leads how we write our job announcements. And then we post them online, careers.wa.gov, which is where all state agencies post.
Yep.
And as you are applying for the job, a real human being recruiter like myself is reviewing the applications to make sure that they meet qualifications. Every agency runs that process a little bit differently, but you'll never find an agency that's using a computer to search out for keyword search. Some of our plans are scored, but it's not typical. We're really spending the time to review people's experience and see how they meet with the qualifications of the job. From there, it goes to the hiring manager to determine who they're going to move forward to an interview with. So there are some, we're typically union represented, so there's some rules that go along with that. They can interview, how many applicants they can see, and then they reach out and contact and schedule interviews. All of our interviews are performance-based interview questions. So it's not a super big surprise. You won't see very, very traditional interview questions being asked. What you'll see is, please give me a specific example of when you have done this work. And then interviews typically go through 2 rounds. So we do a first round interview, and then the second round is usually with higher level management. And then we go through the reference process. And then we usually call about 3 references. The tricky part here is that references don't have to be on list. So they're not necessarily the references you provide. They could be anyone, off list or on list. We do try to stay away from social media because that opens up a can of worms for discrimination and bias, and we don't want that. We try to keep as clean a process as possible. From there, because of the nature of the work that our agency does, and we're working with vulnerable population, we do background check to because you have something come up on your background check doesn't mean that you're necessarily disqualified from the job that you're applying for. It really depends on what it is. So if you had aggravated assault and you were working in the crime victims program, that might be not compatible. So we wouldn't put you there. But if it really just depends on what it is. It doesn't preclude you. So it's not our job to punish you for anything, right? Then after that, we make an offer. And because of the process that it takes to enter a new person into state government, because we have to connect with a lot of other different agencies, it takes about 2 weeks. That's not just because like it's polite to give 2 weeks notice. It's because it takes us some time to get everybody's retirement in order and entered into our system. So then your hire date happens and onboarding, which is basically the whole process.
Great, thank you. Going back to the interview piece, I love hearing that you are really focusing on those experience-based questions, because that's what I'm talking to our students about constantly. Is you need to be able to give some specific examples, because that's going to show the person that you're interviewing with what you can bring to the table, and it really just highlights your ability to do the job. So I love hearing those are some of the things that you're asking about.
Yeah, absolutely. We train it too.
Good. Perfect. So what are the qualities that you're looking for most in your new hires?
So for our new hires, a lot of what we're looking for, and again, it's the nature of the work that we have, we're searching for empathetic souls, essentially. We're not heavy in any like education versus experience type of area. We're pretty fluid. We're one of the, I would say state government is pretty fluid in that anyways. It kind of depends who you talk to. So we're really looking for people who can have empathy, but then can also separate their work from the personal day-to-day life too. Because you're dealing with injured workers on a daily basis, or because we're so public facing, people are not really happy to see L&I coming, and we're working really hard to change that perception of regulator, and all we want to do is stamp no on your claims. We want to be more personable and work well with the public. We need that empathy, but also to not take it personal and take it home with you, because that will burn you out really fast, and this work is heavy. Yeah. I think another quality that we look for people is people who want to be, they have that public servant ingrained in them. They're not going to get paid what they're worth. They have to really want to do the work that we're doing and be willing to move forward and adapt, be very adaptable and change quickly. Because it is a very, even though it's state government and it tends to move slow, our environments themselves don't, and the people we deal with don't. So we have to move fast to meet that need.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, it sounds like a lot of the values lining up with our students, especially the piece of just the empathy and really wanting to work for people, and that it's about the job. It's not necessarily about the benefits that are coming from it, but it's the work that you are doing that's really supporting our community. So yeah. I like hearing that. That's great. So what are you looking for in the actual application materials, resumes, cover letters, all of that? What are some things that are standing out?
So the things that stand out that are positive are those who can really tie, I like to call it being generally specific. So they can really tie the knowledge that they have and experience that they have to the job they're applying for. So it's taking, like, maybe you have experience managing a budget. And instead of telling me what the budget was for and all of the nitty gritty, really tiny specifics, you tell me that you have budget management experience, which you know how to do the processes that come along with that. So planning and milestones, and how to overcome a negative. That's more important to me than what you did it with. The interview is the time where you can explain how you got that experience, but your resume needs to be clear in that here's how generally I meet this qualification. Also, really, really well-written letters of interest. I always say that it's a good formula to have 3 paragraphs. One, talking about why you want to work for the agency that or the position that you're applying for, and not a, I'm interested in this position because I meet the qualifications. Something that really speaks to agency and that agency's mission. 2, how you meet the qualifications, which is pretty generic. And then 3, what extra piece do you have that you bring to the table that someone else doesn't? So someone with heavy customer service experience brings a lot to the table because they've dealt with difficult customers. They've resolved a lot of conflict that not everybody might have that experience. So that's what we're looking for. And complete answers. We notice when things are copied and pasted. We notice when things are taken from the job announcement and copied and pasted into I spent a couple days writing that announcement, so I know when it's my words in your application. Same as school, right? Teachers.
Exactly.
So those are things that we do really notice. Again, like I said before, we're pretty fluid as far as like experience and education and how they match. So if they've learned something in a class and utilize that as a project, that does help. So they should be speaking to that. If they do volunteer things on campus or they're part of clubs and groups, they should talk about them like it's a job. And that kind of stuff does stand out. We don't really need to know like what their status is as far as like, can they make it to class every day? We need to know that they can take that experience that they actually have had and they can put it to work.
Great. Yes, I'm constantly working with students on that because a lot of them, they don't have the time to go out and have other experiences besides just being a student, or they are working full-time while being a student, but in a job that's just help providing for their family, not necessarily related to their interests. So it's all about finding transferable skills and really paying attention to those. So with that, I know you were saying that what they're studying maybe isn't as important as their interests and their experiences, but are you looking for any special credentials or practical experience related to the opportunities?
Yeah, it really depends on the job classification. So whatever that job title is, safety and health specialists, we prefer them and we tend to look more at people who have the education that background that falls in line with it. So it is, the degree itself is occupational safety and health. And it's just a bachelor's. We will look at if they've taken classes on OSHA or WISHA, we'll look at that. We do have occupational nurse consultants. Oh no. And those do require a BSN, so a nursing degree in that. We like our medical treatment adjudicators is what we call them. They're dealing with medical coding and billing. And so we do like them to have some background or class education in medical coding. I know you can get a certification in it. Sometimes you can have your AA in it as well. For IT, it's a nice to have if they have their certifications in IT. I think it's, oh, I don't remember what any of them are. They just left me. But there's some C++ or C#.
All of the programming and everything.
Yeah, all the programming stuff. They do like to have that. We're, again, state government, we're a little unique because we're not, for state government, we're forward thinking and we're in the future for us, but we're still back in like 2010 as far as like computer programming and languages, and we're trying to bridge the gap. So someone who has a good understanding of both really is like, they're like the piece of gold that we're searching for those positions. And so the certifications do help just because we know that they'll be able to like institute those when we need them. But as far, like I said, as far as a requirement, really the only ones that have requirements are that occupational nurse consultant. And then we have chemists. Those do require a degree.
Okay. Great. Well, what open positions do you anticipate having this year? Jobs, internships, opportunities such as that?
Yeah, so we're recruiting now. We're always recruiting, um, even through slower months. And we're working really hard to make sure that um, recruitment is run as normally as possible, despite current events. So we have about 45 to 50 jobs posted currently that we're actively recruiting for. We don't post a job if we're not looking for someone. It's pretty rare. You will see open continuous out there. It's pretty rare that's out there and we've already filled the position. But I know that can be a source of confusion and frustration when they see that. We try to keep our jobs as fresh as possible. So they're usually open for between 7 and 14 days. And they change daily. So I got 2 new recruitments in this morning. And I will say probably the one that we recruit for the most right now will be IT. We're in the midst of doing a huge technology transfer of software that we're using. Need a lot of IT on board for that. And we have this apprenticeship that is a full-time job and it turns into a full-time permanent state job. That is called the claim manager apprenticeship, and it's learning how to adjudicate claims for L&I. So you're working with all injured workers essentially, and you're going to class for 10 months, about 3 times a week. Then the other 2 days of the week, you're managing your own claim set. So you're building up your caseload to be about 281 by the time you graduate, which is a lot of claims to be processed, but we probably process, well, we have like 3.3 million workers in Washington state. So we're processing a huge portion of that. People are always getting hurt in the job. So what's nice about that program is that you're getting paid better than minimum wage, better than some of our entry-level jobs, but it's still considered entry-level because we're training you. And it's the total class or the total time for the apprenticeship is 22 months, but it's a great way to get your foot in the door because the minimum qualification is a bachelor's degree or 4 years of experience in customer service or risk management, military, nursing, anything like that, or a combination of those.
Right. And it sounds like a really good opportunity for a recent grad.
It is. It's a super good, and it's a good career builder because we hire you at the 2 level, but we have the level 1 through level 5. And then after you hit the 5 level, we have supervisors, trainers, coaches, and managers. So it's a good career path if that's what you're looking for.
Great. With that, I do want to ask, we are heading into, and not heading into, we are in very strange times right now.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of students who are going to be graduating in May and entering into a different job market than what they were anticipating a couple months ago. So do you have any advice or anything you'd like to say to those students who are going to be going out and looking for opportunities?
Absolutely. I have a little piece of my heart that goes out to them because when I graduated from college, it was like right as the recession hit. And it was rough finding a job because you're competing with so many people.
Yeah.
And no, you don't really know which way is up and where you're going. And I would say like my best advice is to not be afraid of any opportunity. Just go for it. If it says it's a non-permanent opportunity, if it's a quote unquote internship, go for it. Just ask. And to connect on LinkedIn with as many recruiters as they can. I'm personally a big proponent for state government. Wish I had gotten in sooner. Would have saved me about 8 jobs that were mini headaches. But I would say just don't be afraid to go for it, and don't be afraid to ask questions and talk to people, because that's gonna be the best way to get their foot in the door and the best way to have their materials looked at sooner, because they'll be a smarter applicant essentially, not because we're looking for their name, but because we've taken the time to get to know them, and they've taken the time to listen to what the employer is saying.
Yeah.
I think that's hugely helpful. So,
Great. I think that's perfect advice. Yep. That's
yeah,
great. I was entering college right as the recession hit. So it was a lot of uncertainty at that point
yeah,
as well. So it was, yeah, I think our students are really set up for success. They are very skilled and a lot of them go on to work for the state. So I
yeah,
love hearing some of these insights into some best practices for that.
yeah, absolutely. We love seeing them apply too. It's hopeful
Yes, it is.
because we're paying attention.
Good. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. This was fun.
Okay.